Okay.
You want to talk about the 60s, is that it?
Yep. As well as today.
As well as today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You ask the questions, we'll answer them.
Okay,
or do you just want an off the cuff?
Sounds good. What would you say is the biggest problem that existed then that still exists today
The biggest problem that exists
among the youth?
In the 60s, I'd say drugs.
well, the drugs were becoming a major problem then, right?
Right.
I think that was the beginning of the drug problem. And the youth at that time were just beginning to feel like they wanted to,
Experiment.
say who they were in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even they were just growing up, but they didn't want to accept what their parents had done. And
They didn't want to
think
identify with us.
I think a lot of that.
Sit back.
Go ahead.
I think they wanted to become their own selves, and I think they had a lot of fears too of the future. I really do. Their attitude was, for some of them, like, we're not going to live that long, we're going to do it now.
Do you think kids today still have that attitude?
Not as much. I don't think. I don't know. I'm not as close to it as I would have been then.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said before, I think one of the biggest problems of the kids of today is really overindulgence. I think they lack nothing in the way of material things, a lot of them. I know I'm talking of a certain group of people, but of the ones we know, their parents give them mostly anything they want. And I think they also, their play areas are too planned. They don't get to do their own things. Everything is organized.
Mm-hmm.
They go from soccer to hockey to karate to you name it. And I think that was a lot different in the 60s. They sort of did their own thing a little more.
So you think kids are more restricted nowadays?
In a way, yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. But they're material.
And they're much more materialistic because they have everything.
Do you think they don't appreciate what they have as much?
No, I really don't. I think they are so used to what they have that they really don't know what it's like to be without, nor try to be without.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm speaking of a certain class. I'm not talking of the poor.
Well, the
poor.
counterculture did consist of mostly middle.
The what, huh?
The counterculture did
Right.
consist of mostly upper middle and upper
Right.
class.
And that's where I think the problems were.
Mm-hmm.
And I think today they're still there, but they're just a little differently. Or they're related a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
Parent and the child today may be a little better in a way because the parent is over interested in what they're doing.
How do you think your values from when you were in the 60s could help the problem of overindulgence today?
You can answer that one.
Well, excuse me. I think that the problem is more than just a generational problem.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, your parents versus my time.
Mm-hmm.
We had just gotten out of a big war. People in a depression. People had very, very little, most people. And it was difficult for the kids to really understand what their parents went through. Not only an economic deprivation, but the fact that many of their parents had been in the service. And when my children were growing up, I didn't think ahead. I think I was thinking backward in terms of my own youth, that we had to accept what we had. And I think the younger people were more interested in exploring the new world And they didn't have the handicap, in a sense, that we did, of starting really from less than what they had.
Hmm. Do you think it would take another stock market crash or a war
Well, I
to get
don't, I
these
don't,
values back?
I don't blame the kids, and I don't blame our generation. I think it is just a natural progression of living. What I lived and the way I lived and my influences from my parents were totally different from what my children experience.
Hmm.
It's just, people grow and you grow up, and being a parent is a very difficult thing because you only get to do it once.
Hmm.
I also think that your parents and your generation, are closer together in that respect than ours was.
Hmm.
I mean, your mom and dad probably had, were very comfortable, and they are making it even more comfortable for you,
Hmm.
right? Yes, well, forget music, excuse me.
Hmm.
The music of today, I don't understand. It has, to me, no musical anything, no comfort, no peaceful. It's all jazzed up,
But
and I don't understand any
your
of it.
parents didn't think any differently. I mean,
Oh, well, yeah, but
we're
not
from
quite so
we're from the
different.
period of Frank Sinatra.
Right, but
Can you imagine Frank Sinatra and the crowds that he used to generate? And his
right,
parents didn't
but
understand
these kids, like the Grateful Dead, well, they're probably passé.
that. Well, they had the Beatles.
Nah.
The '60s had the Beatles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
I mean,
revolutionary.
I just don't
Yeah.
understand your music, and I don't think it's half as nice as ours was.
Okay. Okay. Any final thoughts?
Yes, I think I would rather have lived in my time than your time.
Mhm.
We could go anywhere at night. We could walk anywhere with the secure feeling of not being attacked. Our homes were not robbed as much. But I think a lot of that has to do with the drug situation,
Mhm.
because these are not rational people.
Mhm.
But if I had to live my life over again, I would
Yeah.
rather have done it in my generation.
Mhm.
You've overdoubted
Yeah,
it. I didn't even say that.
I think that living is an exciting experience, and that it doesn't really matter what generation, that it's a changing, dynamic situation. And about the only thing you can say is that one should learn from history, a common phrase, but it is very important that you learn from the experiences that we had, and hopefully it'll help you in the years ahead for you and your children.